Hey guys, this is the Uber Elite, and this is my Null's Inclination build on the beta. This is a build that is a hybrid bow and summoner type build, and this is due to the mechanics of the bow, Null's Inclination. So first of all, let's go into what Null's Inclination actually is. Null's Inclination is a bow that gives us chaos damage, chaos res, it has attack speed on it. It gives us 1% minion damage per 10 dexterity. It has an increased 212 int requirement, bringing the requirements of the bow to 212 dex and 212 int, but it casts socketed minion spells on kill with this weapon, which means that every time we kill something ourselves with the bow, we are able to instantly cast any of these minion spells in our bow. Now, I have decided to use Animate Weapon, Summon Raging Spirits, and Flesh Offering in the bow, so all of these will get cast on kill. Now, Animate Weapon was a given choice because of my aura choices, which we'll go into later, and SRS gives us some extra little bits of damage when we are struggling against certain mobs and packs that also which also actually end up roaming a lot, and they end up cleaning up behind us a lot, pretty often. So this ends up being a great choice in my experience so far. We have both Animate Weapon and Summon Raging Spirit linked to Melee Splash, Multi-Strike, and minion damage. Now, I have been swapping around the two red gems, Melee Splash and Multi-Strike. I have tried out Increased Duration in exchange for both of these, but ultimately Melee Splash and Multi-Strike leads to the most damage per spirit and per weapon. Increased Duration allows us to increase our max number of Animate Weapons and SRS. With Increased Duration, we are able to hit the cap sometimes on SRS in very extreme situations like fracture maps and really high pack size maps with really good mob rolls like monkeys, but it doesn't happen very often. Now, as for the last skill, Flesh Offering. Now, this is insanely strong. This basically gives us the 6th link for free, and we only have to have that on the off socket. This basically gives us onslaught for our minions every time we kill something. So, ends up being really strong, and also has synergy with a certain jewel called Cannibalistic Habits. Now, Cannibalistic Habits, this is a legacy version. It's actually been nerfed already. What Cannibalistic Habits does is you recover 2% of your maximum life when you consume or destroy a corpse. The legacy version is 4%, which is what you're looking at now. When you have this in, every time Flesh Offering explodes a corpse, this activates. And Flesh Offering can consume multiple corpses, so if Flesh Offering destroys 5 corpses, you're gaining 10% life, or 20% with the legacy version. This enables us to potentially have life sustainability before we have any sort of leech or life on hit, which is amazing. But we need to be able to kill stuff with the bow. So my choice of dealing damage, since we don't have a lot of physical damage with the bow, I've decided to scale the elemental damage. Because not only does it scale our damage, but it scales Animate Weapon very well. And if you've ever watched my Animate Weapon build through Build of the Week, or through my guide, or through my stream, you'll know that Elemental Animator is a very strong and high damage dealing build, while still being an amazing support. So, we have this Alpha Hell here. Now, my auras of choice right now, because we're solo, are Anger, Wrath, Herald of Thunder, and Herald of Ice. Now, Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder are both not technically auras, so they're not gaining the benefit of the Alpha Howl, but they do give us more damage than the alternative choice, Haste. Now, because, again, we're soloing, we absolutely need to do damage ourselves. So, our links in our chest are very important. Now, we have to have them in the chest because, well, we want to have our bow skill in the chest so that we can cast these minion skills in the bow when we kill stuff. So my attack of choice ends up being Tornado Shot here. Now there's been a lot of talk about Split Arrow and all of that, but Tornado Shot hits very often, and it doubles as both a single target and an AoE damage dealing skill through GMP and being able to shotgun. Now, the secondary effect of Tornado Shot is still able to shotgun mobs, so you can hit a mob 3 times. Now, this ends up being great. Alternatively, if you're in a group, you can have your aura changes. End up being different. You can also use Split Arrow with Chain instead, but that's a whole nother story we'll talk about later. The third important link to have in this is Culling Strike. Now, if we're not getting last hits, we're not casting stuff. It doesn't count as our kill if we're not actually killing it with the bow. So we have to actually end up dealing damage ourselves or being able to get last hits. If our minions kill stuff, it doesn't count. So Culling Strike ends up filling this spot, and it also gives us an increased damage modifier, which is actually not too bad considering we don't have a lot of increased damage on the tree. Now, Weapon Elemental is our 4th gem choice because, well, it's a multiplier for weapon elemental damage. We're doing elemental damage scaling, and it's one of the best gems to have. Now, some people might say Slower Proj is also a multiplier, but Slower Proj won't give as much damage as Weapon Elemental is because we're dealing so much Weapon Elemental. I know there is Chaos damage on the bow, and it doesn't scale that, but it's not an amazing amount of Chaos damage when you consider the amount of aura effectiveness we do have and the elemental damage we have on other gear. And the fact that it's hard to scale Chaos damage through other gear as well. That aside, our 5th links, these kind of change based on where you are at with the build. Now, my 5th link was faster attacks. It was originally blood magic though. Before we were able to sustain on mana, I ended up using blood magic, and I ended up sustaining all of my life that I used through the Cannibalistic Habits gem. And this surprisingly was very, very good. Until you came down to single targets and the fact that you weren't hitting as fast as you could potentially. So, getting rid of blood magic was very helpful, but it is very hard. It has higher gear requirements. We'll talk about that later. Our 5th link ended up being life gain on hit. Now, life gain on hit enables the single target sustainability. And this means I no longer need the Cannibalistic Habits Jewel. Although it is very, very nice to have, we don't need it. But because we aren't using the Blood Magic Jewel, we have to have a way to sustain our mana. Now, we have very little mana left open. And this is through all of the reduced reservation we have. We have 30% on the tree. We have an extra 2% reduced mana reserve through a jewel that you actually get through a quest. So we have 32% from that, and then we have another 8% from the Alpha Howl, which leaves us with 10% of our mana left. So how do we sustain our mana? We use the Clarity Gem to heal our mana. Now, how do we run Clarity? You run it on blood magic. Simple as. So, Clarity enables us to sustain our mana a little bit better, and because we're running the life on hit jewel now, we did have some mana problems, but this is solved. Because we sustain our life through life gain on hit, we no longer need the Cannibalistic Habits Jewel, which means we can run a mana on hit jewel instead. Now, this is great with Tornado Shot too, because even on a single target, you can heal a large amount of mana if you end up shotgunning the mob. Now, the Radius of Auras is kind of like a bonus, but that's besides the point. So, This could result in a meta change for elemental builds, but that's something we should probably save for another video. The last aura that you see here, by the way, is the Shaper Seed aura. Shaper Seed gives us a large amount of life regen, and gives us a large amount of mana regen as well. We also picked the Shaper node for some life regen and mana regen, and we also have some mana regen here as well. Now, this enables us to have 80 mana regen per second, which, again, if we're not hitting stuff or we're not using Rallying Cry, we have problems sustaining the mana. But let's go into our skill choices now. Our other skill choices are a Rallying Cry. Now, Rallying Cry is double amazing. First of all, most minion damage stuff is more damage. So we need to have something to multiply in the first place to take full advantage of this. Now, Rallying Cry actually gives us an increased damage modifier, and it gives us mana regen, so it's amazing. But it also gives our minions increased damage, so it's absolutely incredible for this build. We also have Blood Rage because we have such a large amount of life regen from Shaper Seed and from all these passives like Heart of Oak and Shaper that we are able to sustain it. We also have a 41-second Blood Rage because of all the duration nodes. And we also have Val Haste. Now, Val Haste also gets multiplied by all of our effective, increased effective auras, which means it's a really strong Val Haste. But on top of that, we also have duration nodes, which means our Val Haste lasts 15.4 seconds. So all of these kind of end up being amazing. Rallying Cry also lasts 15.4 seconds as well. So you can kind of just hit Val Haste, Rallying Cry, and then your minions are super strong as well as you for those 15 seconds. Our other skill choices are Elemental Weakness for our Curse, which, well, it's a given because we're doing so much elemental damage and so are our minions. We have Blink Arrow for our movement skill to get over annoying ledges and to get out of sticky situations. And we have Convocation, so we can pull all of our minions to us for if they're stuck behind walls, if we need them for single target, any of that stuff. Other stuff we have a lot of Dex and Int on gear. These gloves both have Dex and Int on them. This ring has Dex. This ring has Int. And that's about it for the stats. We also, well, Shaper Seed also gives us Int. Other than that, we just mostly are looking for elemental damage on gear, weapon elemental damage on bow and on quiver and on the belt. So all in all, it's a really fun build to play. We also have other jewels, like this Static Electricity Jewel, which because we have 90 dex allocated within this radius, we get 1 to 91 lightning damage, which adds a pretty nice amount of damage. It's about 500 damage from that. Very nice jewel to have. Although definitely not a requirement. You could very easily add in survival secrets or something like that, and you only get 200 DPS, but you get some extra mana regen out of it. And the Shaper Seed is not entirely required, it just enables Blood Rage, which, when we have 3 Frenzy charges up, we actually gain 1,500 DPS on our Tornado Shot. Now, that's an insane buff. Frenzy charges are really strong, and just absolutely amazing right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they're nerfed. In the end, it's a really fun build to play. It's very effective. There's a lot of alternative type of specs you could potentially run. You can actually run this spec as a support build, where you're running Anger, Wrath, and Haste on Generosity in a group, and you're actually running summons, and just instead of running, instead of doing damage yourself, you're just calling with the bow while your summons do all the work, or your friends do a lot of work. Or preferably both, obviously. So, not everything was explored with this, and as you've seen, there's going to be wipes shortly. So I can't test everything, but yeah. Anyways, guys, this is the Uber Elite signing off. If there's anything I forgot, feel free to ask. This build was a lot of fun to play, and really interesting. Honestly, it's awesome to see that this is viable, and it's a lot of fun. I did have some struggles in the 80+ maps, but we weren't exactly well geared for it. We didn't have a lot of nodes and all of that. So I'm not really surprised by that. But up to 78 maps or so, we were doing really well with this build, which is awesome to see. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the Uber Elite signing off. Peace out.